No One Will Save You, Brian Duffield's brand new film starring Kaitlyn Dever and very, very few other people, too. It is an extremely small scale at the same time, somewhat larger scale movie. This is now on Hulu. Just came out last week. The film is really interesting because in 93 minutes, there's only 2 lines of dialogue in the whole thing. And it is a very well filmed movie. It's very well shot. It's got some great sound. It's got some great cinematography. It's got a very nice score and a great performance by Kaitlyn Dever. Some really nice special effects, too, for a movie that I think, wasn't the highest of high budgets nor the lowest of low. But this is a very accomplished looking movie, which is why it fucking comes on streaming, unfortunately. This would have been really good to see in a theater. And I kept saying that. Catherine and I watched this together. I said, this would have been really good in a theater and really immersive in a theater. And it sucks that this thing has to come out onto streaming because it's well worth seeing. It's not very long. Again, like I said, it's 93 minutes, and it essentially revolves around this young girl played by Kaitlyn Dever, who is like living in her childhood home and by herself. Her mother's gone. Her best friend named Maud has passed away under mysterious circumstances. So essentially, she keeps to herself, and she like constructs this model town, these like small buildings in her living room, and then eventually, aliens, these humanoid weird looking aliens that kind of look like more evolved like humanoid alien versions of the aliens in A Quiet Place.
Yeah,
they start arriving and break into the house and try to wrestle with her and subdue her, if you will. And then eventually she's trying to fight back, and as the movie goes on, you learn a little bit more about what happened with Maud and why Maud's parents shun this girl Bryn, why they shun her from society, why everybody pretty much shuns her from society. And the movie's intensely focused on Kaitlyn Dever. Again, there's no dialogue really in this movie either. And the interesting part is it's like, like she can talk. She just doesn't have really anybody to talk to.
yeah.
And she doesn't waste her words either, or like talks to herself or anything. That's why it creates this thing to this impulse of you as a viewer, the lack of dialogue in this thing, to kind of lean forward and look a little bit closer and read between the lines. Really makes you sort of an active moviegoer. I think that's first things first. One of the things I really like about this movie is it demands that you pay attention to it, and it rewards you paying attention. Pop over to you, Joe. Your thoughts on No One Will Save You?
Let me start out by saying that the idea of this movie was not just the alien thing, but like having a movie where you follow a character that doesn't talk throughout the whole movie has always been something I would have loved making myself. Not that I'm a filmmaker or anything, but just like the short period of time when I was so into movies that I wanted to be a filmmaker, like every other fucking film fanatic has. I was like, man, I would really love to see a movie like, and my idea was during the zombie apocalypse because I'm a teenager and like I thought like that was gonna be so original and cool. I was like, man, I would love to have like a movie take place during there, and it's like you follow a character and it's like it's very limited on dialogue and everything, because I've always thought it's such a creative way to do storytelling is all through visuals. One thing I loved about Matt Reeves' Planet of the Apes movies is a lot of those movies rely on visual storytelling. At least the last two that he actually directed. The first 10 minutes of one of them, there's no dialogue. Like it's just all it's all done visually and everything. You're getting caught up to speed with a ton of stuff that's done just through apes doing sign language or facial expression. So the idea of this is something that just instantly clicked with me when I heard like there's just only 2 lines of dialogue in this movie. I was like, oh my god, yeah. I'm so down with this. And then I heard it's an alien invasion movie. And I'm like, holy shit, that even sounds cooler. Like, they actually have an interesting, way of doing this. A classic alien invasion. Not this War of the Worlds things where it's giant spaceships. No, like body snatcher type of stuff. Which we haven't had in a while. And like Up was, not Up. Nope was the movie I was thinking of. Up is
very different movies, those two.
A whole different movie.
Very good. Elite screw up.
Yeah, Nope was, it was kind of a body snatcher movie, but it involved more of a spaceship than aliens. This to me is more of like, that classic sci-fi thing. I mean, even like Steve was saying, like the aliens are kind of, the humanoid evolution of the Quiet Place aliens. They're basically, yeah, the little gray men that we've seen in like, old school sci-fi films, but just like evolutionized. Like, they have different parts to them. There's different species of each one of them, or different, like, different versions of them. Um, and I gotta say, man, I really like this movie a lot. I like going into it. I mean, like, it's got an uphill battle. You can't really have dialogue to express a character, so it all relies on this one actress to do all the heavy lifting in this movie. And I just gotta say, Kaitlyn Dever, she is really damn good in this movie. It starts out a little cheesy, where it's like she's constantly going, like, just making little grunts like that, and I'm just like, all right, is this how the movie's gonna actually be? Because this is
As somebody who watches movies with captions on, it's like the captions in this movie amount to sighs, breathes heavily.
It reminded me a lot. Anytime if you guys watch anime or anything, like, when a character's like, oh, like when something shocking happens, it's like
that's it's iconic. That iconic anime.
Yeah, that.
It's like, it's just stuff like that. It's like you don't realize. It's one of those things that it's like when we go from anime to live action, it's like, oh, this is a insurmountable challenge that we didn't realize we had on our hands here.
So like it started out that way, and I was like, all right, this might be a little too cheesy. But as the movie went along, especially when the aliens do start showing up, and this mystery of why does everybody in this town hate her? Like, what's going on? As that continued to play out, the more and more I got invested. It's a lot of there's a lot of familiarity with what happens in this movie. Like, it is an alien invasion movie, so you're gonna see a lot of stuff that you've seen in a movie I just mentioned, War of the Worlds. You'll see some similarities there. And even with the whole mystery of like what happened to her best friend and why does the town hate her, that stuff you can piece together too with any other mystery. It's how the movie is done that made it feel so what's the right word I'm working for here? Like, so it made it feel much more like they were really influenced. There we go. They really had something that they were influenced by, and really like they were focused on doing this story this way. And how it is done with limited dialogue, all focused on one character. I was like, this is actually like a really refreshing way of doing this, because it's just like I'm just appreciating the creativity side of this. Whenever it is a part of the movie, I'm like, okay, I know how this is probably gonna play out. It honestly reminds me of what's that show called? Oh my god, I'm just blanking out on so many stuff. Jordan Peele just brought it back for one season. It was a
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone. This movie reminded me of like a longer episode of the Twilight Zone, especially with how it ends. How it ends, I was like, dude, this straight up is just practically the Twilight Zone at this point. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, I very much enjoyed this movie. There's a few parts where I'm just, I kind of like rolled my eyes, like, okay, because it's an alien invasion movie, we have to do this kind of thing. Okay, like, the whole limited dialogue thing here, it is kind of suffering at moments, where like, it's like, okay, like, come on, I mean, you gotta tell somebody, do you realize what I just saw out there? Like, something like that. But I think for the most part, it's played really well. It's played very, like, serious. It's played very well from the main actress and everybody involved, that I let it slide at times, and overall I had a good time. I'll pass it off to you, Dom.
I think I've come to the conclusion that this is a highly effective movie at being a litmus test for certain viewers. If you're more savvy, if you want to get to the heart of what someone thinks about movies, media, storytelling, this might be a good place to start. By that, I mean, there's a lot of immediate things going on with this story that are like, holy shit, there's aliens. Surprise, surprise. That's how it's hardly a spoiler, but there are aliens. This girl is in danger. What the hell is going on? What is the mystery here? But and a lot of movies would be content with that, particularly horror movies, just whatever kind of threat there is. What this movie does well above and beyond, which is hardly unique, but what it does so effectively is its emotional arc for its character that so many other movies forget to do. Not like just forget altogether, but for the most part, they just completely undersell it.
Yeah, a lot of times a movie like this, the third act would undersell something like this because they'll have a big climax, and this did the complete opposite.
Or it would just shove it all in at the
That
end
too, yeah.
without building it up at all. And it's like, oh, that felt kind of cheap. Or just whatever kind of mistake that so many other stories either commit lightly or commit heavily. This one, it is one in the same with the immediate action. It is all. This is a story about, trauma. A story about,
forgiveness,
about losing loved ones, about isolation, about coming out of one's shell and how heavy of a burden that is. And it just so happens to be in the midst of an alien invasion. And that's what I think that's honestly what makes that's the emotional impact of something like Shaun of the Dead. Now, of course, Edgar Wright films, they're just technical masterpieces in and of themselves. They're marvels to look at and experience. But at the heart of Shaun of the Dead is that it is a zombie movie, but it's a rom-com at the same time. It's a rom-com zom, as they were marketing it, which is just a joy to look at. Here, it is all about this central character. What is the mystery of the aliens is one thing. The mystery of what the hell did this girl do that made is she just a dork because she's got her little play set? Is that the reason? If it were real life, probably, because the real life is mean, especially small towns.
And she dresses like she lost the right to vote. Like,
dude, yeah, for real. I was like, all right, I'm pretty sure I did see a cell phone in this movie, but like when she came out of the house wearing like the outfit in the screenshot I just showed on screen for our viewers, I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, have I missed something? Is this a time period piece?
Did you write that down? Did you write that beforehand?
I literally just thought of that.
That's genius. She dresses like she lost the right to vote.
Well, she does. She does. She's dressed. I think when I was watching with Catherine, I was because we were confused in the beginning. We were like, what time period is this set in? And I'm like, I think like the car she was driving was a modern SUV. I don't know why she's dressed like a waif, but like,
no, I was like, because there were times where it's like, oh, was this set in the 80s or something? Like, oh my god. Sorry,
that's got to be one of the Sleepless quotes of the year right there. She dressed like she lost the right to vote.
That's very effective. No, the thing that makes this so effective is its emotional impact and its character, right? Like, yeah, of course, the alien thing is very interesting, but even if you don't care about that stuff, even if you think you don't care about something like character development or like the emotional side of things, the more humanistic side of things, even if you think you don't care about it and you just want to know what the hell is going on with these aliens, when it's not there, you will know it.
Yeah.
You won't know it. You'll feel it. You'll feel it and it'll feel hollow. It'll feel empty. It's what you feel with a lot of these Marvel movies nowadays. And that's what a lot of people fail to miss. And going back to this litmus test thing, and I'll end here, but going back to this litmus test thing, if I watch this movie with someone and at the end of it, if they're like, what the hell was that ending? Or it's like, well, I want to know what they did with the aliens, or like, I want to know this or whatever. It's like, did she win? Did she lose? It's like, that's how you know this person needs a little bit of emotional growth. George, like, I'm being very, very condescending, but only because everyone else is dumb. Only because it's something that frustrates me as a creative person. I've never written a movie, and I probably never will. But it's like when it's there, it is so effective, and when it's not there, it's so painstakingly obvious.
Yeah.
And I'm being very vague, right? Because of course it's the plot of the movie, so I'm trying not to be spoilerific. But it does it so damn well that it just so happens that everything else it does is also very effective. So I am very much all for this movie, and I am so much more to talk. It's so potent at what it does, of what little it does, that it's not like Dune where we can go into it more. So like I don't know where we can go from here.
I mean, I could just go the opposite from you. The alien stuff in this movie is actually very terrifying as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, like, discourage people, like, this is a very thought-provoking film. No, it is that. But if you're here for the aliens, you're gonna have a good time too. Like,
Yes.
There's a couple really good scenes. Can I just make note too? I want to say one thing like serious and one thing and just one thing point out something that's funny. One of the things that really works in this movie, especially during the alien scenes, is the music, and I think the music does a lot of the heavy lifting.
that and the sound design too.
Yeah, we just give some admiration to the composer's name of this? Sounds like his last name sounds like the title of a Gucci Mane album. His name is Joseph Trapanese. It sounds like the title of a Lil Wayne song right there. I love that. Joseph Trapanese. That's a last name right there. I just noticed that about 40 minutes ago when I was getting ready for the show. I'm like, that's a dope name. But
that sounds like trap from Japan. Trapanese.
Trapanese.
And that would be a label Americans would give that genre.
The closest thing I could relate to this is the Migos song from many years ago before they blew up, when they would talk about how they didn't care what people online would say about them negatively, because they said that they were speaking brokenese, and that's what that's where I will end that sidebar anecdote there. My knowledge of hip hop. But continue, Joe.
No, I mean, like the alien stuff in here, like I was saying, it is creepy. They just do weird stuff, man. Like, they're the kind of aliens where it's like, you have aliens like in Quiet Place. Yeah, they move really slow because they're sound based and everything. There's a reason for that. And
they're more animalistic too. They're just beasts.
When their walking speed is our running speed, and they're just walking that fast, it's like, okay, I don't even want to know how fast you run. Like, when she first comes across one and it's just walking around her kitchen at like fast as hell, I'm just like, dude, I would freak the hell out if I saw that running around. I would think it's running around, only to find out like, oh no, that's just it walking. Like, even the slow build-ups and everything, like, they are a bit cliche, but like, man, they are tense. I mean, the first encounter, totally not trying to do a pun there, but the first encounter with the alien, it had me on the edge of my seat when I was watching this. And there's even a moment later where there's one chase scene where she fights like a little monkey version of one, and like, just out of nowhere, it just stops attacking her and does this weird pose, and you're like, what the hell is that? And then it goes right back into it. You're just like, these aliens are actually alien, and that is something I think is missing a lot of times from alien movies, where it's just like the aliens just kind of act animal-ized. They don't act very alien. Like A Quiet Place, there's a reason for it. They're sound-based and everything. This, I really like that, like, no, these are like living things. They have like, they can move around and everything. They're aware of their surroundings, but they just do weird stuff. Their limbs contort in different ways to where, like, if they put their limb this way, all of a sudden they have like 6 different new joints, and you're just like, dude, the design on this thing is also really cool. It's simple, but it's cool. It brought me back to like just early sci-fi films when they would just be weird and experimental with just aliens like this. It's like, oh, we haven't had something like this in a while. I mean, like, yeah, Nope was beautiful and everything. I don't know if I would consider it weird, other than maybe like, yeah, maybe some of the allegory stuff, if you dig deep, can seem weird to people. But like, the alien itself to me was like beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful looking alien and everything. It's a weird thing to describe an alien, but like, especially one that like grinds up people and everything. But like, this was just like, no, these things are just weird, creepy, and they feel actual alien.
I agree. Yeah, there's some wild design here with these aliens, and it's not one of those movies too. And that's what I was kind of wondering going into this. I'm like, is this going to be one of these like sci-fi movies that like they're not really going to give you a good look at the alien, or you're not really going to see exactly what they are? Are they going to remain abstract and kind of in the shadows? That's not the case with this movie. This movie does a really good job at like not just showing you the aliens, but also just like showing you, like, I guess you would say, the dexterity of them as well, just because of the fact
and the
that they're
variety.
so limber. And there's variety too. There's insane variety with these aliens as well. Kaitlyn Dever gives an outstanding performance in this thing.
Oh yeah.
Working with almost no dialogue here, just sort of her wits and physicality. I think she does a fabulous job here. Kaitlyn Dever's been on, I think, a lot of people's radars, whether you knew her from Justified, whether you knew her from Last Man Standing, or Booksmart more recently. Whatever the case may be, Kaitlyn Dever's been a fledgling star for a while, only 26 years old, and gives a very commendable performance here in this movie too. Like really proving that she's young, but she can also carry a role on her own. And I think she does great work here. I think the emotions are great in this movie that she sort of displays. I think the only, and it's not like the movie mishandles it, I don't think. I think the only negative would be for me here is that I think the movie does a good job with the ending and sort of how it, kind of brings its title's relevance a little bit into the fold. And then the way it chooses to kind of conclude is very nice and is very, and almost inspiring in a weird way if you take it that way. But I mean, here's the thing though. This is, and this can't be ignored. This is another fucking movie though, ultimately about grief and trauma. And it has become the single most overused theme in movies. This will be looked at, I would say, in 10 years from now, unless we're still plagued by grief, trauma, and depression and everything else. I swear to God, like 2015 to 2025 or so, like this era in horror and sci-fi and thriller filmmaking is going to be defined by like griefer movies, if you will, movies that are about like grief, trauma, skeletons in closet, like that. I guess that's the only thing is that, right? I mean, it's so beyond familiar now. The craftsmanship here is great, but it does start to feel familiar territory. What say you, Dom? Then we'll go to Joe. Doesn't have to be closing thoughts, just a response.
Maybe grief wouldn't feel so goddamn relatable if the world didn't keep dumping it on us all the time. Maybe it speaks to us as an excellent source of a creative pool there, Steve. It feels very, very familiar. No, I get what you're saying. I don't know. It's honestly, I don't know. I kind of disagree with that just because it's such a universal thing. It's such a base universal emotion that everyone, will experience. The Brazilians call it saudade, freaking Germans call it Tuesday, but it's just a difficult thing that we all go through at some point. So
wait, is it actually called Tuesday?
I think it's generic emotion enough that that's what you're gonna say, Joe.
So is it actually called Tuesday, or were you making a joke?
I was making a joke.
Oh, okay,
no, but hand it to those Germans. They come up with some random ass word.
That's why I had to ask, because I was like, wait, hold on, let me make sure.
No. Yeah. Honestly, the alien part of it, the alien invasion part of it, is almost jokingly and knowingly generic. Like craft wise, how the story unfolds, how the plot unfolds is done, with the great ton of craft. But like these aliens, dude, they're what you think of when you hear aliens. The spacecraft are literal saucers, dude. It is very generic, and I think knowingly so. This isn't the first time this director has had kind of an unexplainable trauma. In fact, this is his second directing credit. His first one, I believe, was a movie called Spontaneous, which I think I remember seeing. I remember seeing it. I don't remember if I managed to see all of it, but effectively, the plot of that movie was kids just start literally combusting, exploding into a bloody mess, just out of nowhere. And I don't think it ever gets explained in that movie. But really, it's a none too subtle allegory for school shootings. But it's an entertaining movie, and it's done with in such an engaging way that they never explain why it's like that, almost to a comedic degree. But at the end of the movie, you don't really care, which is why when you do care, I start to think about, well maybe this isn't your kind of movie, but that's okay, because we have David Zaslav to cater to. No, I'm kidding. I'm being very harsh. The point is, are we going to move to final thoughts, or do we want to?
You can give your final thoughts here.
Yeah, at the end of it, the craft here, which is where we're just pulling out over and over again. But honestly, it's very effective. The craft here is done very well. The sci-fi, the immediate real world plot, it's smartly done, almost generically, to the point where you don't really have to think too hard about it. It's not that original if you think about it. But what's at the heart of the movie is what this one character's struggle and what they have to do amidst this sci-fi drapings, and how effectively it's done, and the mystery of that make it a very, very fun movie to watch. And I honestly, 3.5 out of 4 stars. Yeah, very strong second outing for the director Brian Duffield. That I honestly, I'm liking their brand. I'm liking their style. So I can't wait to see what's next from them.
He's also had multiple spec scripts go to the blacklist, which is like the list of screenplays that are popular but unproduced. He's had multiple different scripts, whether it be Underwater, which became the Kristen Stewart movie. He was a producer on Cocaine Bear as well. So he's Duffield's been around for a little bit now, and he's got himself a hit with this one. Joe, what say you for final thoughts? Then I'll kind of just backpedal and give mine.
I agree with you both. Because I did say like there is familiarity with this story, and at times with the beats that it's doing, but how it was done just made it feel so refreshing. The trauma aspect of it is a bit of the familiarity as well, but again, it was just it was done in such a creative way where it's like, hey, it's done all through facial expression. I have to piece the story to myself. And even then, by the end of the movie, I might be left with a few more questions that I might have to think about and go back and watch this movie and kind of re-examine a few scenes. And I appreciated it for that. Like, I was like, hey, that's a unique way to make a movie. A unique and fun way, too. Because even if I wasn't viewing it like that, I still think, even just as an alien invasion movie, this was still pretty fun. For me, it's also 3.5 out of 4 stars. I really did have a good time with this. Is it going to be my top 10? Probably not, but it's definitely an honorable mention for me, to people being like, hey, if there was one thing on streaming you should check out this year, this was probably one of the movies I would throw on there.
Hulu's been sneaky good with some of these too.
They have, yeah.
Palm Springs. What was that one we watched last? Not Okay. Yeah. Not Okay was another one. There's been some sneaky good ones.
It recommended me right after I finished this one. It recommended me Fresh, which was another one I liked a lot last year or 2 years ago, whichever year it came out.
But No One Will Save You. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I think it's the perfect length for what it wants to do, too. I think it's a perfect length. I think that in a day and age of sort of oversaturation and everything being explained to you through monologue and dialogue and backstory, I love Duffield's approach of being very bare bones and inciting and encouraging you to kind of lean forward and be active and look for clues, like when she's writing out the letters and things like that. I love that. I find that to be fascinating. I think there's some great filmmaking tactics going on over here. And notwithstanding, too, Aaron Morton, great cinematography, very moody, good use of shadows in a lot of scenes. Gotta say it again, composer Joseph Trapanese, with that amazing last name, does really strong work when the aliens land and then the aliens do wind up encountering Bren. Kaitlyn Dever's character, and Dever, too, gives an outstanding performance. This is one of the highlight reel performances of her still very young career. Solid 3 out of 4 stars from me. Thoroughly enjoyed this. It's also been a long time since we really covered a streaming movie on the show. We've been really focused on theater movies for the last several months, so it was kind of nice, even though I wish this damn thing would have come to theaters, because I think it would have played very well in theaters. It was kind of cool to go back on streaming, though, because I feel like streaming movies now, you don't see too many of them post-pandemic anymore, or at least they don't have the platform that they once did when that was like the sole way to watch new movies.
It did have a limited release in New York and California where you could see it in theaters for the weekend that this came out, and then that was
they don't count. They don't count. We're in the Midwest. They don't count.
Yeah, they don't count.
They don't count. It was exclusively streaming. Okay, I'm in fucking Iowa. Look, those states do very little for me.
As someone who did go to the theater over the weekend to go see a new release, stay at home and watch No One Will Save You. If you did that, you made the right choice this weekend.